Hello everyone and welcome back to Saya no Uta, Song of Saya in English. Anyhow, we're gonna go ahead and load up our last save, which we had just met Saya in, and we'll begin from here. So, Saya, why are you so good to me? Saya's slender hips bounce up and down in insatiable hunger, each descent thrusting into my manhood, deep into the embrace of her hot, tight womb. Who could imagine that her seemingly incorruptible body would ever glisten with the hot sweat of passion, or feast on pleasure with such bottomless lust? Saya, my darling Saya, is this really what you want? Why do you go so far from me? What am I that you can give yourself to me, body and soul? Is this merely sympathy? Do you pity me, the exile from society? Is that enough for you to surrender yourself to such mad desire? Are you so wanton? Her eyes, as she gazes down upon me, are devoid of twisted or sinful desire. There are only the melting flames of ecstasy. Her beautiful carnal moans and indulging body seem impossible, dreamlike, and I cannot help but wonder if even the pleasure that is burning from me head to toe is but an illusion. Needing to touch her, I reassure myself that she is real. I raise my hands to her small breasts and seize them like my life depends on it. Saya convulses, screaming like an animal, as I roll her sharp pink nipples through my fingers. She throws her head back as she gasps for air. Saya is here. She is with me, now. Only in this moment is her existence certain. Only when I am joined with her can I believe. I nod and accelerate the pace of my thrusts. Saya's gasps raise in pitch as her mad dance of passion reaches its peak. No matter what cruel fate might await me, Saya, there is nothing I fear more than losing you. As Saya climaxes, convulsing and wailing, I surrender to her tight embrace and release my bodily seed into her womb. Saya collapses atop me, still smiling, and I wrap my arms around her. The feeling of her soft, sweat-soaked skin and the warmth emanating from her body reassure me that she is still here. I realize that my cheeks are wet with tears. Why, Saya? Why do you go so far from me? I don't understand it. I don't, but I'm losing myself to you more every day. I can't live without you, Saya. I wrap my arms around her, praying that our bodies will melt together and never again be apart. Tell me, please, what must I do to keep you with me? How can I repay you? Saya whispers into my chest,
海苔に炊いてもらうの大好き。ずっと一緒にこうしていたい。だから私は海苔から離れたりしない。
Why? Why me?
それはね、海苔が一人ぼっちだから。
She says softly, gazing up into my eyes.
それはさやも一人ぼっちだったから。
The sorrow in her voice resonates with my own. There is a deep loneliness in her eyes, a loneliness from which now springs boundless affection.
だからさやにも海苔しかいないの。この世でただ一人だけ私を抱きしめてくれる大好きな海苔。
Now I know. No matter what horrors this world unleashes upon me, all I've ever needed is Saya. Yo is determined to talk to him today. Nothing will happen as long as she hesitates. It will only prolong her suffering. The time has come to show courage once again. Yo's fourth period on Thursday is biology. This is her one chance to see Fuminori. As a required course with many students, the lecture is held in a large hall that can seat well over 200. But since the room is usually only half full, it is rarely difficult for Yo to find the seat she wants. Yo prefers to sit near the center, where it is easiest to hear the professor. Most of the students congregate in the same area for the same reason. Fuminori usually sits beside her, although given the ambiguous state of their relationship, she knows better than to take this for granted. Still, she tries to save a seat whenever possible. The classroom isn't crowded today, so Yo is able to set her bag on the seat next to her without inconveniencing anyone. But when the professor arrives at the usual time to start class, there's still no sign of Fuminori. After waiting for about 10 minutes, Yo scans the room furtively. Fuminori is there, sitting alone in the far back corner. Did he miss Yo when he came in? No, he couldn't have. And besides, no serious student would willingly sit so far back from the front. Feeling miserable, Yo slides her bag back over to herself. Fuminori is out the door the moment class ends. Yo barely manages to catch up to him before he disappears down the hallway. Fuminori jerks at the sound of his name. You would think she just screamed at him. What? He turns to her and asks reluctantly. Now they are face to face, Yo is painfully aware of how much weight Fuminori has lost. His sunken eyes or protruding cheekbones are a far cry from the features familiar to her. She wonders whether he's under a lot of stress, or perhaps not getting enough nutrition. Maybe it's both. He definitely looks more tense than he should. Afraid, even. Though she can't imagine why. His eyes move restlessly from point to point, and he refuses to look Yo in the eyes. It hurts to see Fuminori this way. What could have changed him so? Today, she reminds herself, rekindling the flame of courage in her chart.
お話があるんです。ちょっといいですか?
The courtyard is empty and silent. No one is willing to sit and chat in the cold November air. So, what is it? Don't you remember? Yo almost blurts out the question, but manages to keep her composure.
咲坂さん、最近ちょっと様子が変です。
Well, a lot's happened. He smiles like it's nothing, but even that seems stiff and forced. He's even standing precisely one pace further away from her than he used to.
本当にそれだけなんですか?
What more do you want? Yo managed to keep from flinching at the harshness of his tone.
何か我慢してるみたいに見えます。
Rather than answer, Fuminori grinds his toe on the dead grass at his feet. Fearing that her determination might flag, Yo lets the words come as they may.
どうしようもないものを無理して壊れそうになるほど頑張って我慢してるみたいに、今の咲坂さんはそう見えます。
Oh? Really? Fuminori mutters through clenched teeth, no longer trying to deny it or change the topic. This is an even clearer signal of rejection than his prior evasiveness. But Yo's determination is strong. Today, at least, she won't back down.
友達ってこんな時のためにいると思うんです。
She implores, trying to convey her sincerity of her feelings to him.
ご家族のことは本当に残念だったと思います。でも咲坂さんは一人ぼっちじゃありません。友くんや大見ちゃんや、それに私がいます。
Yo can no longer stop the words pouring from her lips. She fears that if she does not unleash the feelings pent up inside of her, they'll be lost forever.
一人で背負い込んだりしなくても、私たちで何とかできることだってあると思うんです。たとえ何もできないにしても、話してさえくれれば、あなたが少しでも楽になるかもしれない。私、咲坂さんの力になりたいんです。他のみんなも同じ気持ちだと。
Stop it! Fuminori yells, silencing Yo's entreaty. She promised herself that she wouldn't back down, but Fuminori's expression is terrible enough to shatter her resolve. The look in his eyes is not anger, or any other warm-blooded emotion. It is hate. Murderous, cold hate. Come to think of it, I never gave you an answer, did I? He remembers. He remembers, yet still he treats her so coldly. That is all the answer she needs. If his words stab any deeper, she might very well die. I never saw you in any special way before. When you asked me out, I wasn't sure how to respond. I didn't know how I really felt about you then.
咲坂さん。
But now I can give you an answer. I've had plenty of time to think it over, you know. I hate you, Tsukuba. I don't even want to look at you. Don't cry, Yo tells herself, but too late to stop the tears pouring from her eyes. I suppose it's too much to hope that I'll never see you again. We do go to the same school. So just make sure this is the last time you speak to me, okay? Your voice makes me sick. Yo whispers in shock and despair, to which Fuminori twists his lips in a benevolent smile. You should really try thinking of yourself once in a while. I bet you were just egged on by Omi and Koji, weren't you? Well, you can play at love all you want, but leave me out of it. That's all Yo can take. Even after shedding tears in front of him, she absolutely refuses to let him hear her cry. Any disgrace would be preferable to breaking down here. So she runs, fleeing breathlessly from the courtyard with Fuminori's cold smile at her back. Omi was the first to catch sight of Yo and Fuminori leaving for the courtyard. Reluctant to interrupt them, but still unwilling to leave them alone, Koji and Omi ended up watching the whole thing from the shadows. Throughout the exchange, Omi was clearly itching to jump out and punch Fuminori in the face. Knowing her tempter, Koji kept firm hold of her arm until the end. If he hadn't, she very might well have done it. Fuminori leaves after Yo, his every step seeming to take an act of willpower. Koji sighs heavily into the once more empty courtyard, but the bitter taste in his mouth will not go away.
どうしちまったんだかな、あいつは。
Even Koji cannot forgive Fuminori's treatment of Yo. However, the first thing that he feels is confusion, not anger. Koji has known Fuminori since long before college. Fuminori was never this cruel before. There's no question now that the accident changed him.
ねえコージ、このまま放っておくつもり？
放っておきたくないにしたって、俺たちに何ができる？
覗き見よりマシなことよ。
Omi shouts with her face red with fury.
私、咲坂君に一言言ってやらなきゃ気が済まないわ。
それで筑波の気が晴れるってもんでもないだろうに。
だったら私の気だけでも晴らすわよ。
You and Omi are best friends, just like Koji and Fuminori. In fact, it was the relationship between Koji and Omi that brought the two together. Omi's anger is only natural.
私、咲坂君と二人だけで話してみたいわ。
本気かよ。
その代わり、陽のことを見ていてあげて。あの子、多分心底傷ついてるから。泣き終わった後で、誰かの優しさが必要になると思う。
なあ、それって俺とお前の役回りが逆じゃないのか？
私みたいな性格だとね、慰め役は無理。励ますつもりで余計に傷跡広げちゃうのがオチなのよ。
なるほど、納得いった。
あ、
じゃあまあ、そっちはほどほどにしとけよな。
In the conversation before Omi's mood gets any worse, Koji heads off to find Yo. I feel awful, miserable, but also refreshed. I finally crossed the line. I knew it would come crashing down like this sooner or later. Having become unable to feel anything but disgust for other people, there was no way I could hope to maintain the relationships I'd had before the accident. Today's incident will definitely get back to Koji and Omi, and everyone will be convinced that I have had a major change in character. Honestly, I don't care anymore. At least I probably won't be committed for this. I should avoid acting any stranger than I already have. If this puts a rift between me and the others, good. The thought of all that stress I'll avoid brings a smile to my lips. I'm fed up with them, sticking their noses into my life. It's like they don't care that they make my gut turn just by being near me. I've been terrified of them until now. But today, I struck fear into one of them. In that sense, it's something of a relief. But I'm not entirely without remorse of what happened. The person I just demolished with the verbal equivalent of a nuclear bomb used to be my friend, Yo. Even if my senses don't believe it, my mind accepts the theory. I don't have any particularly grudge against Yo herself, and I didn't want to hurt her. In retrospect, perhaps I should have just ignored her outright. Yo was an attractive girl. I certainly didn't think badly of her. To be honest, though, I was annoyed when Koji and Omi tried to stick us together. I felt like they were toying with me, and Yo seemed totally loose to the fact that she was dancing to their tune. Her cluelessness was irritating. Still, I knew that none of them meant any harm. Back then, I didn't have any reason to hurt others just to get my way. If having a cruel relationship with Yo would keep our circle of friends closer, that was casual, not cruel by the way, I was willing to make that compromise. Now, however, there's no room in my heart for such forbearance. If merely talking to someone is an ordeal, how can I be expected to show them kindness? The ramifications have left me exhausted. I want to return to Saya as soon as possible, but thinking about the packed trains and crowded downtown street between here and home saps my spirit. Catching sight of a nearby bench, I sit down and close my eyes to the horrors of the world. I can't do anything about the stink or the noise, but at least I can calm my nerves enough to rest. When I regain consciousness, I am in the T University Hospital ward. The world was as dark as it is now. I had not yet recovered my sight, even though my eyes and optical nerve were undamaged. It must have been an after effect of the accident. Blindness was a shock, but now I know that my suffering was nothing. After all, my senses of hearing, touch, taste, and smell were all fine at the time. The real horror began when my sight returned. The one small mercy was that I was able to come to terms with the accident, and my neurology was still blind. No. Yeah. I panicked when I first saw the nightmarish hospital and the blood-curdling shapes of the doctors and nurses, but I soon guessed the cause. It chills me to think of what might have happened if I had recovered my sight along with my consciousness, suddenly awakening to what I can only be described as hell. I would no doubt have lost my mind instantly. Soon my disorder spread to the sense of touch, taste, and smell. As it turns out, sight exerts tremendous influence over the other 4 senses. The taste of my food, the feel of my bedsheets, the fragrance of my get-well flowers. All became as unbearably foul as my eyes said they should be. Eventually, when even the doctors' voices became unrecognizable as human, I decided to kill myself. I didn't believe for a second that I could live in this new world. At least, not until I met Saya. One night, while thinking of a painless way to die, I found myself coming to sleep. Drifting between the nightmares in my dreams and the nightmare of reality, I didn't notice her enter my room. The next thing I knew, there was a face staring down at me from next to my bed. The face was not covered in pus or slime or earthworm-like feelers. It had smooth, white cheeks, round eyes, a lovely little nose. All things I had never expected to see again. The face was that of a girl, undeniably human and positively glowing with beauty. I sighed in admiration, savoring the first peace and joy since regaining my sight. She had not expected such a reaction, apparently.
怖くないの？私のこと。
She asked, looking at the clock. I saw that it was exactly 3 in the morning. No time for a young girl to be alone in the hospital. Perhaps she expected me to mistake her for a ghost. But I would not have cared if she had been a ghost. Either way, she was a godsend. Who are you? What are you doing here?
私はサヤ。パパのこと探しに来たの。
I assumed that she was the daughter of a late shift doctor, or another patient. It was unusual but not unthinkable for such a girl to be wandering around the hospital.
あなた、怖がらないんじゃつまらない。
Wait! I cried, desperate to keep her from leaving. It was only after she turned around that I realized I hadn't thought of what to say next.
何？
Her beautiful eyes drew me in, healing my soul to its core. Though the white haze clouded my mind, I struggled to form a coherent sentence. I shouldn't do this to a girl. You're the only one I can ask. No longer concerned with propriety, I let the words come as they willed. Will you let me hold your hand? Saya looked confused at first, but then she smiled like she'd just found her new toy. Her smile was brighter than my memories of the sun.
変な人。そんなこと言い出したの、あなたが初めて。
She said, pulling out her slender white hand. Ever so carefully, as though catching snowflakes, I pressed my palm against hers. I could feel her human warmth and the softness of her delicate fingers. She was there, just beyond the palm of my hand. Thinking back on the joyful tears I shed then, I know that this is the moment that I was saved from my fate. This is the first time in weeks. that I've touched someone and felt them as human.
Huh?
I can't touch anyone else. I was in an accident, and as a side effect of the surgery, I can't see people as human anymore.
本当に不思議な人。あなたって面白い。明日の夜もまた来ていい？
She said, winding her fingers gently around mine. Yes, of course. But isn't it dangerous?
大丈夫よ。夜は私のものだから。
And so our rendezvous began. Saya came to my room every night at 3 a.m., skillfully taking advantage of the duty nurse's shift change. I was astonished to learn that she was living inside the hospital.
これだけ広いと隠れる場所には事欠かないから。
She said, answering my surprise with a nonchalant smile. She'd been living in the suburbs with her father, she told me, until one day he'd suddenly stopped coming home. After she had tired of waiting for his return, Sai decided one night to sneak into the hospital where he worked, and there she'd lived for over 2 months, searching for his whereabouts all the while. Don't you have to go to school?
いいの。勉強は全部パパに教えてもらったから。さやはとっても頭がいいんだよ。
She was a strange girl. On the one hand, she looked and talked like an innocent child. On the other, she was remarkably self-reliant, and at times exhibited a sharp intelligence and deep knowledge that many may have found unsettling. I didn't care. Saya was the only other human in the world gone mad. Her existence meant far more to me than the standards of society. Aren't you worried you might get caught?
全然平気。ここにいれば食べるものにも不自由しないし、パパのうちに一人ぼっちでいるよりもずっと楽しいよ。入院してる患者さんたちのうち、ちょっと精神的に参ってそうな人を事前にチェックしといてね。
Saya continued, grinning mischievously.
時々部屋に真夜中に忍び込んで脅かしたりするの。その人が大騒ぎしても、そういう患者さんの言うことはみんな真に受けたりしないから、結局は悪い夢ってことで片付けられちゃうし。
Her confession reminded me that the hospital was famous for its ghost stories. Who could have imagined that there was actually a real girl impishly roaming these halls? So that's why you came to my room the first time.
ごめんね。
While her pranks were hardly praiseworthy, I couldn't bring myself to scold her for the very thing that had brought us together. You shouldn't do it anymore. Will you come talk to me instead?
さやもその方が楽しい。
With extreme care, I was able to conceal my sensory disorder. It was glaringly obvious that the doctors had no way to cure me, and the fact that I had undergone a still experimental procedure made me even more cautious. As a medical student, it was easy for me to imagine how the doctors react if they discovered that I was exhibiting such an unusual side effect. It was not about to become a guinea pig, a mere specimen to be examined with clinical detachment. So I hid my discomfort and loathing behind a mask of normalcy, convincing the doctors that any signs of stress were merely a result of hospitalization. Saya was my support. Looking forward to her nightly visits gave me the strength to endure my daily routine. Hope can make an enormous difference in a patient's progress. With the aid of my secret nurse, I recovered at a pace that left the doctors stunned. On the last night before my release, I summoned my courage and asked her, "Are you going to stay here forever?"
結局パパの手がかりはなかったけど、もう他にいるところもないし。
In other words, she had no reason to stay. Why not stay with me? I asked timidly. The question took all the courage I had.
え？
My family's gone, so I have plenty of room. You won't need to hide. And it's not a bad place to live.
ずっと文則と一緒に暮らすの？
I was too afraid to ask her what she thought of that, and so I hastily offered a deal. In exchange, I'll help you look for your father. I'll find him no matter what.
難しいと思うよ、それ。
Saya said, looking a little embarrassed.
多分パパ、何か悪いことをしてこの病院を辞めたんだと思う。だから警察とかは困るの。なるべくこっそりと探さなきゃいけないし。
I'll do whatever it takes. Unable to control myself, I finally spoke the truth. I can't be apart from you. At first she looked bewildered, but after a few moments of silence she said,
少しだけ考えさせて。
The night she left my room, earlier than usual. On the day of my release, I managed to smile as I accepted the hideous, foul-smelling, celebratory bouquet. The flesh beasts calling themselves Koji, Omi, and Yo came to pick me up. Even though they had come to see me many times during my stay, it never got easier to see my friends change so horribly. My tears of despair drew suspicion, but I managed to explain them as tears of joy. While we walked to Koji's car, I looked desperately for Saya amid the grotesque scenery. Even as we drove away, I kept watching the hospital fade into the distance, praying for a last glimmer of hope. But Saya never appeared. After Koji and the others dropped me off, I paused a while to regard my surroundings. I'd lived my entire life on this block, in this house. There was no other place I could call home. But nothing was as I remembered. As I walked up the path to the front door and took in the yard where I'd spent my childhood, I could feel those memories being defiled by my twisted, festering shapes around me. Inside the house, I found nothing familiar, nothing to offer me comfort and warmth. What I had once called home was now a whole other world. I have no home, I whispered with a smile of self-pity. There was one last stop to make, one last nail to hammer into my coffin. I stepped into the room that had cradled me from childhood. The walls were peppered with human entrails, the bed a tangled mass of worm flesh. But none of that mattered. There, curled up on the bed like an abandoned cat, was Saya. As I stood there in shock, she looked at me in a tiny, weak voice and said,
本当にここにいてもいい？
I responded by sweeping her into my arms, embracing her so tightly that she would not escape. Saya did not resist. When she arrived at the Sakisaka house, Omi first takes a deep breath to calm herself. Her anger does not vanish entirely, of course, but at least now she can hear herself think. While waiting for a response from the intercom, she looks over the patch of yard that you can see from outside the gate. Even Omi isn't normally one to complain about other people's housekeeping, but this is going too far. The grass is growing wild, and there are piles of dead leaves scattered everywhere. It doesn't just look untended. It looks like an uninhabited ruin. It's still light out, but every window has its storm shutters tightly sealed. Omi guesses that they were closed since morning. What kind of life is Fuminori leading? Even if he's living alone, he can't neglect his housework forever. And is it just her imagination? Or does something stink like rotten meat? It couldn't be coming from the yard, could it? There's still no response, so she presses the buzzer a second time, and a third, and a fourth. Finally, after this has gone on for 10 minutes, Omi loses her patience and opens the cover of the intercom. As she expected, the power had been disconnected. Perhaps Fuminori has a good reason for shutting off the world, but Omi can only see it as a lack of respect for others. Her anger rekindled, she pushes the gate open and stomps through the yard to the front door. Given the state of his intercom, she doubts that Fuminori will respond to a knock, so Omi decides to simply open the door and go in shouting. And if the door's locked, she'll just have to. Surprisingly, the doorknob turns easily in her hand, and the enraged Omi finds herself throwing the door open wider than she intended. Her nostrils are instantly assaulted by a choking stench.
Nani?
As Omi stands petrified on the threshold, the cowbell hanging by the side of the door chimes loudly. A moment later, Omi can't believe her ears. The voice she just heard could not have been human, yet its intonations were too complex for any animal she can imagine.
誰かいるの?
She calls out to the end of the hallway, from which the voice came. There's no response. Instead, she hears the sound of something soft and wet flopping its way deeper into the house. Finding it difficult to place a meaningful image to the voice she just heard, Omi stares blankly at the empty vestibule. There's nothing there. Not even Fuminori's shoes, which can only mean that he's still outside somewhere, wearing them. The house should be empty. But then, what was that voice just now? Her anger has vanished, as if it were never there. Nevertheless, Omi sets foot into the hallway, leaving the door open so that the cowbell won't ring. The floor creaks, setting her nerves on edge. Omi herself isn't sure why she's acting like a burglar, but something tells her to make as little noise as possible. The potency of the stink inside the house makes the whiff she caught outside pale in comparison. It's sickening, like rotten fish guts. Has food been left to spoil in the kitchen? She hears a bubbling sound up ahead. Stepping gingerly on the creaking floorboards, Omi makes her way to the end of the hallway. She finds rooms to both sides of her, one lit, the other dark, and chooses to enter into the living room. It's the kitchen, lit by must only be the only window in the house not covered with a storm shutter. The sound she heard was the pot boiling on the stove, and on the chopping board next to it lies a butcher knife and some half-diced carrots. A perfectly normal household scene, with the light, the setting, sun making everything the color of decomposing fruit. Something's wrong. Who was cooking here? And where did they go?
誰かいないんですか?
Omi calls, regretting it immediately as she realizes that her voice is shaking. As her words echo vainly through the silent house, she begins to feel foolish and defenseless. She suddenly feels something cold seeping through her pantyhose. She timidly reaches down to touch her feet. Her fingertips come away covered in viscous olive green slime, like the filthy water from a tank long clogged with algae and dead fish. The whole floor is covered with it. It must be the source of the stench. Omi now wishes that she had never worn her shoes, or had worn her shoes inside. Manners be damned. When she looks back ruefully the way she came, she realizes that her current position is not visible from the entrance. This kitchen must be where the strange voice came from. The next room is probably the den. As she expected, from the closed storm shutters, it's pitch black inside. Omi wants nothing more than to flee this house, but that would mean turning her back to the darkness. And that, she simply cannot bring herself to do. Moved by some irrational compulsion, Omi sets foot into the den. It's too dark to see anything, and the stink is far worse than before. She slides her hand along the wall, feeling for the light switch, finding it much sooner than she expected, She flips it on like it's her last hope. Colors. So many colors. The purple of entrails, the brown of rotten meat, the crimson of fresh blood, the yellow of fat. These colors, and more that cannot be described, cover every inch of the room in maddening array. The colors say all that's needed to be said about the painter's hatred, malice, and insanity. Omi's legs give out from the shock, sending her to the floor. Slime immediately soaks through her jeans, its cold tendrils creeping up to her legs, crotch, and her neck. Her hand flies to her neck, where it is greeted with another drop of chilly slime. Above her, something is dropping down on her head, making perhaps the worst decision of her life. Omi looks up. The predator clinging to the ceiling, poised to leap upon its prey. She sees it in every detail. Her mouth and nose are sealed before she can scream, and her belly is torn open as something enters to feast on her innards. By the time she feels any of this, Omi has already gone mad. Fuck.